are diving into week 3, actually, of this sermon series that we have been a part of for the past 3 weeks. That's how that works. I just figured that out. Anyway, so 3 weeks in is what we're talking about, the invisible war. And what we are specifically doing here is we are kind of following through. We've been going through the book of Ephesians for a long time. We're doing this because, again, Ephesians was written to a new church. We are 6 months old, so we're just tracking along in this thing. And I thought that'd be a phenomenal book for us to dive into to see, like, what is the Apostle Paul's advice for people who are new to the faith, for people who are new to all of this stuff that we're talking about, where we're going, what we're doing. And so where we find ourselves is at the end of there is chapter 6, and there's this whole section that talks about this invisible war. So for 3 weeks now, we've been talking about what does it look like to be a part of this invisible war. And here's where it breaks down like this. See, Paul tells us that we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in the dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. Again, he just said the same thing 3 times. And what he says is you got an enemy and you can't see it. Now, here's the thing. I know that many of us, again, and particularly if this is your first time here, I just want to say thank you for coming. Please do the 3-week challenge. We are so pumped that you're here. We want to have you come back 3 weeks, gift every week. That's the point. We want to show you that we love you. But here's the thing. What I want to share is we don't always see the war. We don't recognize the war. We don't understand it, and yet we all feel it, right? We've all had moments where we're believing thoughts in our head that we know we shouldn't be believing. There's these voices that are whispering, you're not good enough, you can't hack it, you're not there. There's this stuff coming against us. And then have you ever asked the question of why does everything go wrong when everything goes wrong, right? I mean, why does everything consistently go wrong at the same time? It's almost as if somebody is out there trying to pull us down. And the question that we're asking is, what if? What if there was somebody trying to pull you down? What if there was a force that was actually trying to hurt you? What if there was a force that was trying to make your life miserable? And here's the thing. For me, I'm well, praise God that there's somebody out there making my life miserable, because that means I'm not just a screw up myself. There's something out there, right? I mean, I think there's some hope in that, but there's also a fight. There's a legit fight. And then here's the thing. Anytime that you have a battle, if you actually recognize you're in the battle, you have a higher chance of winning the battle. If you're unprepared and you don't see that hook coming, you're gonna get a bloody nose, right? If you don't put up your dukes, you're gonna not be prepared for the battle that's coming. And what I'm trying to say, and what Paul is trying to say, and again, he so wanted new Christians, new believers to get this. You've got to understand you're in a war. Because if you don't understand it, you're going to have a bloody nose. You're not going to see the shots that are coming at you. And so what he's saying is we've got to be prepared. We've got to put on the right gear. We've got to prep our body. We've got to prep our mind. We've got to prep all of this for the war that's actually coming. And so here's what Paul says. He says, therefore, here's what I want you to do. I want you to put on every piece of body armor out there, basically. I want you to get ready for this. Put on God's armor. So be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. And then after the battle, you will be standing firm. And last week, we dive into this series really with the very first body armor piece that he talks about. And what he actually talks about is the belt of truth, right? So we got very far last week. We said, stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth. That's as far as we got. We didn't even finish the sentence last week because there was so much there. Because as we dive into it, what is the belt of truth and why do we need to understand it? We need to understand, first of all, that we hear a lot of lies. Not only do we tell ourselves lies in our heads, again, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you can't hack this, but we've got lies being thrown at us from every angle, online, on TV, the media, it is always there. And the devil is so good at taking something almost true and then twisting it on its head and making it look different than it does. And so this is what we're up against, is a battle that we don't even see, and yet it's being thrown at us whether we want it or not. So last week we talked about the first step is understand the truth. Get that. This week we move on to the body armor of righteousness. And here's what Paul specifically says. He says, stand your ground, put on the body armor of God's righteousness, and then for shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news so you'll be prepared. So we're talking about 2 things today, actually. First of all, the body armor of righteousness. He's talking, put on your Kevlar, right? Because when a bullet comes at you, you want to basically be protected. And I just have a simple question, do you realize why every single fighting force on the planet has always worn a body armor, something covering their chest? In the military, they wear Kevlar. And police, they wear body armor. Literally, my brother's a security guard. He was in a prison. Now he's in a hospital. I don't know how you go from there to there, but anyway, he wears body armor every single day. It's heavy. It takes a lot of work to do it, but he wears it because our heart matters, right? Our heart really, really matters. And our heart matters probably in more ways than actually we realize. I want to start off here with just a little bit of a story. First of all, my son loves soccer. I just told you guys like last month that I was all into the World Cup. I was watching it. I was pumped. I was excited. I was loving it, right? I love watching my son play soccer because he's good. First of all, thank you, Micah, for being good. That's awesome. But beyond that, I love it because it brings me back to when I was a kid. See, I grew up in Spain, and I don't know how much you watch the World Cup at all, but Spain won, right? And so my point is like my home country just conquered everybody because they're awesome. And I knew that because I played soccer in Spain. And I thought I was awesome because I was playing soccer like literally with the best of the best because they've won before, right? It's not a new thing that they won. And so I have always thought that I was really, really good at soccer. But I remember when I was a kid, actually, we lived in Spain, but 1 year every 4 years, we'd come back to the U.S. to raise money, basically, so we could go back to Spain. So I lived 1 year in the U.S., and here's the thing. I'd always played soccer, but in Spain, I played like street soccer, right? I mean, if you don't have a ball, you kick a rock, and the goalie loves it. He does, but you kick something, and you just play, right? Because it's street soccer, and there's no rules, and you just do it. And here's what I learned. I learned the fancy footwork. I learned like how to get around people. I learned how to shoot it in. I could do all of that, right? But then when I actually came to the U.S., I joined a legit real team. And when I joined a legit real team, first of all, I realized there's rules, and I don't like that. But then the second thing I learned that was way worse than red cards and yellow cards was the very simple fact that the soccer pitch is much bigger than my backyard was, right? Like, I mean, going from this goal to that goal is long. And what I learned is to be a good soccer player, you have to be a runner. Why? Because the thing is, I was awesome. I mean, I was stinking awesome for the first 5 to 10 minutes. But the thing is, the game is like an hour and a half long, right? So it goes on and on and running from here to there and here to there and here to there, like 5-10 minutes in, I'm like, my problem was my heart couldn't catch up to my skills. And I want to pause there because I think that's what we need to hear. Our hearts matter. Because if your heart can't catch up to your skills, then your heart can't carry you to where you want to go. So if you really want to be good in a battle, in a war, in a soccer game, whatever it is we're doing, if we really want to be good at it, we have to condition our hearts to be just as good as our legs will carry us. We have to make sure that we are in alignment with, like, our hearts matter. Again, why do military wear Kevlar? It's because this body armor stuff matters. Like, protecting our heart truly, truly, truly matters. You take the heart out, you lose the game. You lose the war. You lose absolutely everything. And again, the heart is such a big word. Like, winning the war begins by guarding our heart, but it's such a big word. Because the heart, it talks about like my emotions. It talks about my feelings. It talks about the physical cardio stuff going on. It talks about all of this, and it all is wrapped up now. And if it's a big word now, hear me, in like ancient Hebrew world, it was an even bigger world because they didn't actually understand the whole blood pump thing moving on. They didn't get that. What they saw when they saw the heart, they were thinking like your soul, your gut, you're like all of this stuff that's going on in here. And they knew that it was housed here, and they knew that the breastplate of righteousness really matters because this is what protects our heart. So let's pause on that. Okay, so what we're told is, first of all, that our heart matters. King Solomon tells us again that we need to guard our heart above all else because it is our heart that determines our course of our life. And we may have heard this verse. It's a very famous verse in the Bible that people like quote a lot, like pay attention to your heart, pay attention to what's going on. Make sure, like, do a heart check, do this soul check, maybe set your mind, like mindfulness thing and do like, how am I feeling? Again, society, psychology, it's all backing us up saying our hearts matter. And what Solomon says is 100% legit. We got to guard it because it matters. But like what Paul is telling us is how we guard it is by wearing this breastplate of righteousness. And now again, he's specifically looking at a Roman soldier. He's thinking about this real breastplate that they wore. It was made out of leather. It was called something very fancy, like a thoraca. And I don't know why you need to know that, but you do. It's called a thoraca. That's a breastplate in Roman. Anyway, but it goes from here to here, and it's like made out of leather. It protects your heart from all this. If you were wealthy, you actually had like an extra level of protection, like basically chainmail. If you think Lord of the Rings, it's like mithril, kind of that type of thing, right? Like chainmail on top of the leather. Like they went all out to protect their heart. How do we do this, though? That's the question that I want to ask. It's like, what does wearing body armor of righteousness look like? That's a very confusing question. Because we understand the word righteousness, I think, many of us. And if you don't, it basically means this. It means do right. That's righteousness. If you want to be righteous, do the right thing, right? And so it's so stupid simple, do right. And yet, it's so stupid hard, right? Because how many times do we want to do the right thing, and yet we drop the ball? How many times do we want to do the right thing, and yet we can't? I think it's a challenge. And I grew up, honestly, in like a religious world where I was always told, okay, so if you want to be righteous, here's how you do it. You stop cussing, you stop drinking, you stop doing the bad things, and you just cut it out, right? If you want to be righteous, don't do bad things and do good things. And so I'm going to tell you that's 100% legit, and it's true. If you want to be righteous, don't do bad things, do good things. But here's the problem with me just coming up here and saying, here's how you be right, be right. First of all, it's redundant, and it's obvious. Thank you for telling me that, like this is this. Thank you. That's obvious. But then the problem is, so many times we try to do this, and yet we drop the ball. We fail. We try to be good. We try to do the right thing, and yet we can't. And it's true because, like, the more that I learn to fight off sin, the less I'm going to be tempted to sin. Hear me. The more you cuss, the more you'll want to cuss. The more you watch things with cussing, the more you'll want to cuss. The more you drink, the more you want to drink because you are relieved from it. The more you do anything, right? The more you have sex, the more you want sex. The more you lust, the more you want lust. The more, again, anything, fill in the blank. This is the way it works. The more you gamble, the more you want to gamble. So if you just stop, you will succeed. But the problem is most of us try to stop and then we fail, right? We try to be righteous. We try to do the right thing, and then we drop the ball. And this is where the other heart problems come in. See, because I dropped the ball and then anxiety comes up like, oh my goodness, I'm a failure. The lies, the belt of truth isn't working anymore. Like, you can't hack it. You'll never be good enough to go to church. Why are you even here? Like, these lies come into me. And that's so not what God has for us. Like what God wants for us is to understand what righteousness truly looks like. And yes, it matters what we do, but let me just simply state, if our goal is simply to be perfect, we're going to fail. And the Apostle Paul made that pretty clear. Like in Romans chapter 3, here's what he says. He says, no one is righteous. Like, no one. So if you think you're above no one, I don't know what's wrong with you, because you're not. You're a one. And so he says, no one is righteous, not even one. No one is truly wise. No one's seeking God. All have turned away. All have become useless. No one does good, not a single one. I don't know if that makes me feel good or terrible, but I'm somewhere in there, right? Something, I'm feeling something. I know that much, right? And then, like, even in the Old Testament, we can see Isaiah tells us, like, we are all infected and we are all impure with sin. We got nothing. When we display our righteous deeds, it's nothing but filthy rags. And just this picture of like, here, look at what I did, Daddy. And it's the worst painting you could ever imagine in your life because I'm just not that good, right? This is where many of us feel. And I just want to say it's a problem, but it's not a problem if we understand that this is where we all start. This is where we all are. And so the problem with church is just saying, do better, do better, do better. Is that it doesn't work. I don't care how much learning you have. I don't care how smart you are. Doing better doesn't work. It doesn't matter about your wisdom. Do you realize Solomon, like the guy that I started this off, saying he gave us the quote, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Solomon says this, but do you know Solomon's story? Do you know what Solomon does? He starts off, this is chapter 4, so he's like, I guess, pretty good at this point, right? But like, if we learn Solomon's story, he went from having everything all together to basically dropping the ball. Here's what it says. If we go to Solomon chapter, or 1 Kings, it says Solomon loved a lot of women. That's a problem. Besides Pharaoh's daughter, he married, in other words, he'd married Pharaoh's daughter first, but then he married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from all the other like Hittite people too. The Lord had clearly told the Israelites, the issue is not just that he's married to a bunch of wives. That's a whole nother problem and a whole nother sermon for a whole nother day. But the problem is God had told them not to marry foreign women because they will turn your hearts to other God. And he knew that this was the establishment that God had made for his people. And Solomon said, I'm smart enough that it doesn't apply to me. Hear me. Solomon thought, I'm good enough that the rules don't apply to me. I'm powerful, like I've got this together, so I don't need to do what I've been instructed. So yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyway. He had 700 wives. Oh my word, that's all I have to say. 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. And in fact, they did turn his heart away. They turned his heart to worship other gods. So see, what I want to point out is they turned his heart. guard your heart above all else, for it determines your life. And yet Solomon's heart was turned away. So the guy that tells us to do this can't do it. The guy that is the wisest, wealthiest, like he's got it more going on than any other human being on the planet ever has. That's what we know about Solomon. He was the wealthiest and wisest man ever, and yet he couldn't get this right. That's not shooting well for me, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like I don't have a shot if he didn't have a shot. And so the question is like, what happened? What happened? See, I think the problem that every single one of us faces when we try to be right and do right is that we may start with good intentions, just like Solomon did. He was following God. He was a man after God's own heart. He had a good family. He had everything going on for him. But the problem was a slow compromise can erode our convictions. Hear me. When we let this one thing in, it begins to chip away at what we believe is true. Slow compromise erodes our convictions. It's not that bad. I'm just going to watch this one show this one time. It's not that bad. I'm just going to let this one drink in or cigarette in or marijuana in, whatever it is, right? I'm not going to go back. And I'm not saying we got to like completely hold off, but we got to pay attention to the Holy Spirit, right? We do, because slow compromise changes everything. Like, I'm just going to cuss this one time because this situation deserves it, right? And then it gets better. And I don't want to those are the easy sins, but I could go deeper. I'm just going to allow this thought about that girl or that guy this one time because it's just there. I'm just going to take fudge on my taxes a little bit because nobody can see. It's not really stealing. It's just the government, right? I'm just going to take this one. It's just a piece of bubble gum, right? The store they're not going to miss it. Again, one thing, one time. I don't know what we're struggling with, but all of us have this place where we let one little thing in. And here's the thing, we tend to, like when we're going through difficulties, and the devil knows this very, very well, our enemy knows when life gets hard, we're more susceptible to sin, right? When the car breaks down and the kids are crying and I can't get to church and I'm sick and my boss just fired me and my dog just died and again, everything else happens, like it's okay, I deserve this. I have a right to just cheat this one time, right? And so this thought hits us, and this thought process, like, it's okay for me to think this way, feel this way, hold this anger in my heart, hold this shame in my heart, hold this guilt in my heart, hold this, again, we can go from sin to actually emotions here. It's okay for me to just hold this here for a bit because I deserve it, right? This is where we are, but the slow desensitization breaks us down. And the devil knows that the more he makes our life difficult, the more easy it is for us to fall. And yet it doesn't have to be this way. I want to tell you another story. I told you about Solomon. Now I want to tell you about this guy by the name of Joseph. I don't know if you know Joseph's story or not, but he lived way before Solomon. But Joseph was one of the patriarchs of Israel, meaning one of the four forefathers of Israel is basically who he was. But he was the youngest son, the second youngest son, rather, in a family with 12 siblings. But the thing is, God had always had his hand on Joseph's heart. And like God had told Joseph specifically in a dream, like, you're going to be something special. I'm going to choose you. I'm going to exalt you. You are literally going to reign over your brothers. Now, if God gives you a dream, you're going to reign over your brothers. Do you know what you shouldn't do? Go tell your brothers. That's just not smart. But Joseph did that. I don't know why. But what ended up happening was his brothers turned against him. Shocking. Like, I'm going to reign over you guys. You're going to bow down to me one day. And that's what happened, right? I mean, that's what happened. So they beat him up. They throw him in a pit. Here's what I want to point out. Joseph's life was really hard. If anybody ever had the right to play the victim card in life, Joseph was the one who had the right to the victim card. He was beat up. He was left for dead in a ditch, and he was literally sold as a slave to Egyptian masters. So, I mean, his life was rough. And not only that, but as we continue to follow his life, it goes from like bad to worse, right? This is kind of what happens to some degree or another. God's hand has always been upon him. He's always been faithful to God. As we read his story, like it says right after he gets pulled out of the ditch, right after he gets sold as a slave to Egypt, here's what it tells us. It tells us the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was always with him. He served in the home of his Egyptian master, Potiphar, was the guy's name, or position rather. But he noticed this, and so the Lord was with him, so he basically promoted him. He had a hand of favor upon Joseph because Joseph was always following God. There is a connection. We follow, there's favor. That frequently tends to happen. But as we keep reading the story, what goes on is like Joseph was good looking. That's my translation. And I'm not going to describe that. Just picture. Good looking guy. Potiphar's wife looks at him and is like, that's nice. and she says, come sleep with me. So imagine you're at a job, everything's going well, and then the boss or the boss's wife, whichever, comes to you and says, hey, let's go to bed. What do you do in that situation? Again, if you're playing the victim card, my life sucks, this might help promote me, this might get me to where I need to be, all of this gets me up higher. And so I could easily see somebody falling prey to this, right? I don't have power. I'm just a slave in this household. And yet, Joseph looks at her and he says, no, girl, I can't do that. Look, my master trusts me with everything. He's given me more authority. He's given me power. I'm not going to do this because he's given me access to everything but you because you're his girl, right? That's what he's saying. But here's what he says that matters the most, I really think, is how could I do such a thing? It would be a great sin against God. He points out it's not just about this is a wrong action. He says, I see that this sin is sin and it is wrong because it would be sinning against God. Yes, it's sinning against my master. Yes, that's a problem. But what matters more than me screwing up my master's love for me is me screwing up my master's love for me. God's value of me. He saw God as the sole source. He sees this. And the thing is, here's the thing. It wasn't like a one-time thing. We need to understand that this story goes on and on and on and on. Like she kept pressuring Joseph day after day as the story goes on, day after day. But he refused to sleep with her. He said no. He kept out of her way. He's trying to avoid her. One day, however, no one else was around when he went to work, and she comes in, she grabs him, she physically, sexually assaults the guy. Again, you want a victim card, this guy gets it. And yet he maintained, he said no, absolutely not. He ran the other way. Now, why did he do this? Again, it's because he knew what he needed to do. Now, hear me. I'm not trying to say, if there's anybody out there who has been sexually assaulted and abused, I'm not trying to say it's your fault. I'm not saying the victim is to blame. I'm not trying to say anything that he is obviously stronger than her because he's a well-built man and she's probably not. She's a rich lady's wife, and so I imagine frail, but I have no idea, right? And he runs away. He can escape. I get that not all of us are there, but what I want to point out more than anything is the attitude and not the problems. The attitude was, I'm going to serve God no matter what happens. His brothers beat him up, threw him in a ditch, left him for dead. He was sold as a slave. And what he said was, I choose to serve God no matter what happens. I choose to serve God no matter what's going to be thrown against me, whether it be a sexual attack, whether it be a physical attack, whether it be poverty, whatever it is that's thrown at me, God comes first and I choose to serve him. Here's my point. My point is Solomon had everything his way. He was the wealthiest and wisest and most powerful man in the world, and yet he didn't guard his heart, and so he fell. Joseph had nothing and was attacked, and he guarded his heart, and things changed for him differently. So see, my point is guarding our heart matters because it's not about our situations, it's about what we let in. It's not about what gets thrown at us. It's about how we choose to see it and how we choose to progress in it. We've got to pay attention. See, what Joseph knew, I believe, that Solomon didn't, is he knew that God was the God of the brokenhearted. He knew that God heals our wounds when we have them. It's not that we're never promised that if we have this breastplate of righteousness, we'll never be attacked, but we're promised that when we are attacked, God will heal us. He says, God is better at healing me. God is better at protecting my heart than anything out there that you've got, right? And this is literally what Paul says. See, Paul knew. He is the one who wrote, no one is righteous, not one. Paul said, no one is righteous in chapter 3 of Romans. So how does he say, put on this righteousness? See, what we have to connect here is that we may not be able to hack it on our own, but let's look at the next piece of armor because that is the bridge. That is the glue that we need to understand. See, what Paul says is put on the body armor of righteousness, but for shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news so that you will be fully prepared. I really think these two have to be connected. Originally, I was just going to preach on one, and then I was like, I can't do that because you can't have the body armor of righteousness without the peace that comes from the good news. See, because again, we can't be righteous on our own. We can try, but we will most likely fail. How did Joseph succeed when everything was thrown at him? It's because he had a peace that didn't make sense in his situation. It's because Joseph had a peace that he knew, I can stand firm in my God because my God will not fail me even when everybody else does. I will not bow down. I will not cave to sin because my God is my source. He is my foundation. He is my strength. Literally this word peace is like he's saying the good news, which means the evangelion, that's the Greek word, it's the gospel. That's what he's talking about. What he's saying is you can't hack it, but the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ is this. Paul said we've all sinned, yes, but see, in the very same chapter where he says we've all sinned, we've all fallen short, we've all broken down, he says in Romans chapter 3, every one of us has sinned. We fall short of God's glorious standard, yet God, in his grace, makes us right, righteous, if you will. God makes us righteous. He does this through Jesus Christ. You can't hack it. I can't hack it. We don't have a shot at being good. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you just do better. Pay attention to your mind more, pay attention to your heart more. Just stop being stupid. I'm not going to stand up here and say that. I'm going to say, press into Jesus because you probably can't do it on your own. And Jesus doesn't really care. He gave himself for us, right? This is what he did. Through Jesus Christ, he freed us from the penalty of our sins. God presented Jesus as a sacrifice for sin. People are made right with God when they believe that Jesus sacrificed his life, shedding his blood. God did this to demonstrate his righteousness. We are righteous because he is righteous. He gives us his righteousness. He himself is fair and just, and he makes sinners right in his sight when they believe in Jesus. It's never been about us. And this is what the church, again, has failed time and time and time again to make it about us. If I do better, I'll be better. And hear me, I'm not saying you shouldn't try better. I'm not saying we don't have a part to play in this. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay attention to our things because we can start with good intentions, but like Solomon, we can be chipped away at in just one little thing after one little thing after one little thing. And allow something to come in that will break us down. We've got to pay attention, but we have to realize it's not up to us ultimately. The beauty of all of this is that even when I fail, there is forgiveness. Even when I drop the ball, Jesus comes to save me. Even when I don't do it right, I am made right with God. In Romans chapter 5, he says we're made right. We have peace with God because of what Jesus Christ did. John 14, but when the Father sends the advocate as my representative, that is the Spirit, he will teach you everything and remind you of everything he's told you. In other words, we've got this advocate fighting for us. And then the next verse, he says, I leave you with a gift, peace of mind and peace of heart. A peace I give that the world cannot give. See, the question that I have today is, again, where is our heart being ripped up? Right? Where is our heart being ripped up? We are not alone in this battle. We don't have to fight alone. How do we wear this breastplate of righteousness? First of all, we have to understand that it's entirely based upon him. I have a part to play, but it's based upon him. I don't come right. I become right when he comes to me. This is beautiful. But how do we wear this breastplate of righteousness? Here's what I believe we have to do, quite honestly. Guarding our heart requires both protection and maintenance. We have to do both of these things if we really want to have our heart. We have to protect our heart. We have to watch what input am I letting in that is going to decay and break down my righteousness. What am I allowing in that changes my thought patterns? What am I allowing in that changes the way that I think about people? Again, maybe it's not sin. Maybe it's just anger and frustration. I'm thinking negatively about this person. That's how hatred begins. That's how animosity begins. I choose to focus on their problems. I choose to focus on where they're not doing it right. I choose to focus on this. Hate leads to fear. Fear leads to hate, leads to the dark side. I didn't get the quote right, but you get the point. The point is, we let one thing in, it chips away. Maybe it's shame. I'm not good enough. Maybe it's victim stance. If you knew my past, you would understand it's not my fault that I am the way I am. It didn't work for Joseph. My point is, it's not about our past, it's about our Jesus that sets us free from our past. We have to protect our heart from the feelings, from the hurt, from the loss. We have to do a heart check. Where is my heart? And we have to guard it. Guard it. Watch it. Pay attention. We have to wear this protection. We have to say, no, I will not believe the lies the devil wants to throw at me. No, I will not believe what you're going to attack me with because I've got this breastplate of righteousness. You can tell me I'm not good enough, but I know in Jesus Christ I am good enough. You can tell me I don't belong in church, but I know in Jesus Christ, this is my house, baby. You can tell me whatever you want, but it's not about that because I know that in Jesus I am set free. I am guarding my heart from his lies. I am guarding my heart from what the world throws at me. I'm guarding my heart from what others throw at me, and I understand that this is for me and this is for him. For some of us, maybe we're coming in and we're just broken. One of the best news of the gospel, and this is like something that shifted everything here. The people of Israel knew that they dropped the ball. After Joseph lived, died, they had the kings, they had the queens, they had all of this. It was phenomenal, but then they completely dropped the ball and God exiled them and punished them severely. They did sin. They lived in sin. But this guy by the name of Ezekiel really was given a promise by God. He said, here's the thing, I get that you were in this place, but I'm in the business of taking broken hearts and healing them. I'm in the business of taking damaged hearts and not only restoring them, but giving you a shield to protect them for the future. Here's what he says. He said to his people, I will gather you up from the nations where you have been punished and dispersed and thrown away. This is what Ezekiel's promise was to his people. He said, and then after I gather you up, I'm going to sprinkle clean water on you. I will make you clean. Your filth will be washed away, and I'll give you a new heart. We don't have to live with the anger, the hurt, the pain, the loss, the shame, the guilt, the destruction, the frustration that we've got in there. I will give you a new heart. I will wash it. I will put a new spirit in you, and I will take that stony, stubborn, good-for-nothing heart, and I will give you a new spirit, a responsive one. A spirit that will help you follow the decrees and actually live in the righteousness you're meant to have. So my question is, what is God speaking to us today? I'm not calling the worship team forward because some of the worship team is out of town, and that's not happening today. But I want us to take a moment. On our Cultivate cards, every single week I say, you know what I want you to do is ask God what he has to say to you. I can talk and talk and talk, and it's great. I like the sound of my voice, but it's nothing compared to God's. Mm-hmm. So now is the time where I want us to just simply take that card, maybe rip off the bottom and say, this is what God is speaking to me. And you're going to write down on that card, God is telling me I have a new heart. God is telling me I'm washed and made clean. God is telling me I need to address this. The question is, where do we need to guard our heart and protect it, right? And maintain it? Where is there something being let in that I have got to hold, to stand the ground here and say, that's not allowed in my heart because I'm protecting it from this? What is God saying to you? How do we stand on the foundation of his peace? How do we make this the steady ground that I stand upon, the firm foundation that will not shake me? That's the question. We're going to play the video. I just want to let you guys talk to God for a little bit.